Hello, and welcome to day number 34 of ZenMadman's Nutty Pot Limit Omaha journey. What am I doing with this series? The idea is basically just to give you a little window of insight into how my morning goes, where I wake up, I do a morning routine, and then I sit down, I try to play a focus session, focusing on every hand, and then do a session review. And I do that partially just to keep myself honest, right? Where every single day I'm going to play at least some hands and I'm going to think critically about them at the end of the session. Let's get to the hand. Ace 6-5, 3, not very good, not even suited to the ace, very clear fold. Suited to the ace, this might be a little trickier because it's got some connectivity, but it's not really good. Let me just type something into the chat. Okay, welcoming everybody. People on Twitch, people on YouTube. Everybody's welcome in whatever timeline you exist in. All right, so paired board. I think paired boards are tricky to play. It's hard to come up with a lot of bluffs here, right? Hands like Ace, King, 10 with diamonds might be a good bluffing hand, but a lot of that could be drawing dead. So you're kind of pushing equity, but it's hard to have good equity against a queen. And you would want the queen blocker to be bluffing if you're looking for blockers, but then you have a made hand. So it's one of those kind of, interesting spots. Ace 6, the 3 and the 2 are fairly poor cards, so I'm going to fold this one. Being suited to the 3 as opposed to the 6, I don't think is necessarily like a super big deal. But yeah, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to open raise that. Here on the button, having a suited ace, nice. Having a 4 and a deuce and a 7, not so nice. We're going to fold it. So just trying not to play hands that are just a little too loose, right? I mean, on the button, we get to play more hands than in any other position. Well, the small blind's complicated because the small blind, there's supposed to be some like limp. So you're supposed to call some hands. So I'm not totally certain what the actual small blind range is, but that's something I want to work on. At some point, I will get PLO vision from Run It Once and play around with that. At the moment, I am using the PLO matrix from Upswing Poker, and there's a link for that one in the description below. Maybe eventually there'll be links for everything, but mostly I link to things that I've actually used and support, right? I use Poker Tracker 4 as my HUD and database program, and I do have an affiliate link for that. So if you're gonna buy it, if you click my link, then I get a cut. You pay the same, and I guess they get less money, but they're fine with that because I'm spreading the good word on their good piece of software. I've used Poker Tracker since the aughts, like 06 or 07 is when I first got it. Okay, let's think about this hand. The Jack 9 and 7 are pretty nice cards to go with the ace, but not suited to the ace. I am going to let this one go. If the 7 were an 8 or a 10, I would play it. I think Jack 9 7 is just a little worse than it kind of feels like it is. I'll mark this one as I believe it is near the cusp, right? It feels very cuspy. And if I was suited to an ace, as I said, I would have raised this one. Let's see. Also, thank you to WTEITTE. It's like Watiti, like Taika, I think. Yeah. Well, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. We are playing PLO100 on Ignition Poker, and I'm just doing a chill little morning stream. And then we're going to review some hands afterwards. So far, basically nothing has happened. So anyone just getting here, you didn't miss much. But yeah, I think getting those the Poker Tracker makes it very easy for me to mark hands, right? Like I click up here and then I go tag hand and then I click pre-flop, and at the end of the session I just filter for those hands. Let me filter there. Cool. So then at the end of the session I can look over my hands very easily, and it's very helpful, right? It gives me a way of improving, right? It makes it very easy to improve by examining my own play. 7-6-6-4, pretty nice, double suited, but against a button raise, I believe I'm going to fold this one. I don't think it's that close. Maybe with a 5. or an 8. Maybe that's a 3-bet. With an ace, I think it's definitely a 3-bet. So I'm more interested in, like, what do I do with that hand's class? I feel like that's probably a fold that I just made. I mean, it was definitely a fold that I just made, but I think it was probably a correct fold. But we'll see. Yeah, and as always, if there's any hands that you have thoughts on, whether it's suggestions or comments on how I played it, or if it's questions about how I played it or how I might have played it if one thing was a little different, go ahead and type it in the chat on Twitch. Just include the whole cards. And on YouTube, throw in the timestamp as well, and it'll make it a lot easier for me to find it and then respond to your comment. I'm very happy to get kind of a conversation going about how to play. I am not an expert at the game. I am, I guess, I don't know whether I would say aspiring player or an improving player is what I would say. I think day after day I improve a little bit, and over time that can end up being a large bit, right? It's sort of incremental improvement is what I'm going for. And while incrementalism isn't necessarily my philosophy in, external affairs, when it comes to self-improvement, I think it is often the best approach. And folding hands that are not suited to the ace when they have a 3, 4, and a 7 in them seems also like the best approach, unless I had maybe a 6 or a 5 instead of the ace. So this table's gotten short, right? We're three-handed. People are playing fast, so we're going to get a lot of hands in, which is one thing I like about these short-handed situations. We get to play a lot of hands. Jack 10, 7, 5 with a suited 10. Not a great hand, but now I'm heads up in position. I'm going to check, but if they raised, I think I was likely to defend this hand. I flop bottom pair and a gut shot. No blockers to the clubs. I'm not crazy about this. They did check, though, and they limped pre, so I'm just going to go ahead and pot it. I feel like I just get to win this pot a lot. Yeah, like, this isn't necessarily the best combo, but there's some good turn cards. A 5 would have been good, a 7 would have been okay, giving me 2 pair, and a king would have given me the nuts unless it was a club. And since they just limped and then checked, I think I can just yoink, just give me that. Give me that. Couple of shout outs that I did at the beginning of the Twitch stream, but that might not be on the YouTube video. Thank you again to Perzilla and Katie Renegade, who is a streamer, I believe from Colorado, that I have yet to check out that stream, but I'm looking forward to. And thank you for the follows. Okay, heads up PLO. This isn't really what I'm primarily studying. What have we seen about this player so far? Not a whole lot. Here it says, this sample, we can throw the sample out, and we're just going to focus now on this. This might be a decent 3-betting hand because it is double suited. I don't have any ace. I do have backdoor royal flush draw now. Middle pair. That's it. And there's going to be a lot of ace X in my opponent's range. At half pot, heads up, heads up from before the flop, right? I am going to peel here. I think a lot of my 2 pair outs are pretty decent. Now I pick up a gut shot, but that's it. No flush draw to go with it. How often are they going to barrel here? I don't know. They're going to have definitely an ace-ace advantage, ace-x advantage, but since they're raising from the button, they're raising like 80% of hands probably, so they're going to have ace-ace much less often than they would, and while I pick up now 4 outs to the nuts, I don't think that's going to be quite enough, as my 2 pair outs are going to be kind of not great. Alright, this might be in bottom 20%, but I feel like with a suit, with 3 connected-ish cards, I can probably raise this. It doesn't feel like a hand I want to be calling a 3-bet with. I should warn you, I have no idea what I'm doing heads up, except I'm under the impression I'm supposed to raise approximately 80% of my buttons, and then defend fairly liberally in the big blind. So this is probably not a great situation to be in, and I would not spend a ton of time doing this, but I figure for the sake of the video, it might be kind of interesting. Just do a little bit of heads up PLO. I don't think I'm going to play a ton. If they keep raising every hand, that's not so bad necessarily. Okay, so I don't think they have 5-7 very often. I think they usually bet that on the flop. Ace-ace is possible, but I'm not super concerned about it. I'm going to bet 3/4. I have all the 5-7 in my range. I have, of course, sets and flop 2 pairs. And while they have like all the ace-ace and I don't have much, I've got the nut advantage, they have the second nut advantage, and now I have the underfull. And the flush got there. I'm trying to get mostly calls by ace-x, I think. And What bet size do I want to go with? I'm going to throw out half pot. This is kind of a like shrug, and I'm not totally sure. Ace, 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 six are really the only things I'm concerned about. I find it hard to believe that they would have anything better. A flush obviously would be delightful. I think they're going to have something like ace, king, or ace, eight there some of the time. Yeah, ace, king, king, jack. They had hearts, so they made the heart draw. You know, good for them, good for me. That was my money card on the river. And, you know, that was a successful heads-up session, I guess. We'll see whether the hands properly import now. I didn't mark any of the heads-up hands. As always, okay, I think I need to shift so that I'm sitting here for lack of confusion. But as always, any hands that that you'd like further to delve into any further, let me know and I will mark them. Just let me know the whole cards, or on YouTube the timestamp. When I'm repeating myself, I probably don't have to say as much the timestamp for YouTube, because if you're on YouTube, you're probably watching, you know, from the beginning. Maybe not, I don't know. People skip around. I skip around. But if you're on Twitch, people come in whenever. That's kind of one of the odd things about a stream, where I think doing a session that has like a clear front to back narrative is a little trickier, whereas doing something that's more of a free flowing, you know, any point in time, it's like, oh, there's a hand, let's talk about that. I think that plays well on Twitch. As always, I'm interested in what people have to say about what kind of streams you like to watch. Let me know in the chat or the comments. Let's try and get a lay of the land here. All right, so there's 3 opponents who are understacked, right? Who have less than a full buy-in. The player on my right could just be kind of lazy and be like, oh, I'll top off when I get under like 95 or whatever. But this is often, you know, these sorts of stack sizes are often a sign of a less serious player. Not always. We don't want to make huge conclusions. But we look at it and say, okay, there's a reasonable chance that those are more the players that we want to play against. Here, now somebody open limps, and that seems certainly like sort of what we're looking for. Let's make sure that this is going to be importing, because I do want to be able to review hands afterwards, even if the HUD doesn't pop up now. I don't really care that much about the HUD. As long as I'm paying attention to my opponents, it's not that big a deal. Flop was very dry. I'm going to go ahead and just pot it here, actually. I'm going to have a lot of Jack X. My opponent's not going to have almost any. I do have an open-ended straight draw, so I've got some kind of emergency outs, and the queen might be good if I hit it. Maybe even the 10 if they call me with a 9, right? So this is a hand that I will open the small blinds, but I'm not going to defend against a raise. Let's see. The last hand did import, right? So there's no HUD, but we don't really care so much. Yeah, I'll just try to remember to actually mark hands as we go along, because I have to do it manually in the front of, what's it called? Poker Tracker. So yeah, at the end of the session, I will look up a bunch of hands in the PLO matrix, all the pre-flop questions. I do a lot of that every day, and I'd say my sense of what hands I should be playing pre-flop is greatly improved from, I guess I've had it, this is the 26th day. I got it on the 1st of June. So it's a monthly subscription to this basically huge database that's presented in like a whole bunch of screenshots that are color-coded. I think they specifically chose the colors. They're these kind of weird color choices, but I think that they're chosen to try and make, you know, red-green colorblind people able to see the chart, because they're kind of a little unusual choices, but I'm not sure. I'd be curious if anybody knows that. All right, so nobody chose to enter the pot. I have a suited ace, pocket eights, and a 9. That's, you know, that's solid. For the button, that's solid. In fact, I think I open this in all positions. Often a pair with a suited ace, if the other card is just not total trash, we're going to play that pretty often. All right, nut flush draw, gut shot to the nuts, and an overpair. Now, the overpair's not that great, but the overpair double blocks the nuts here. And this is not a board that I would be doing a lot of betting on. Out of all the hands that I would want to bluff here, this is like at the top because I have so much equity. Now, this player decides to bet. I don't think I'm going to get them to fold. My equity is quite strong, but I'd rather call here, let people come in with weaker draws, and try to play a pot in position against them, if possible. Otherwise, I'm probably just going to call it off on the turn, because I think I'm still going to have odds to do so. Anytime you have 13 outs, your opponents basically can't give you pot odds that are insufficient. So I'll be getting 5-2, right, if they bet. I'm kind of tempted to just jam now. But I can also just realize my equity by checking back. This player betting into, 4 ways. I don't feel like they're check folding here. It's just like a gut, like it doesn't seem likely. So there's also a chance my 8s are good if they have a hand like 6-7, blah blah. So I think I can just check this back. It feels almost like a little too strong to turn into a bluff, and like this player probably isn't going to fold a lot of better hands. Now, if they have some kind of king high flush draw, I will regret my life choices. But I don't. I don't regret my life. I regret nothing. So what did they have? Let's see. They had ace, 8, 5, deuce. So a 3 made them a straight, a 7 made them a straight, although we would have beaten that. And I guess an ace or an 8 or a deuce would have given them like 2 pair. All right. This player open limps. I think the deuce is just quite terrible, and I'm going to fold because of it. Having the queen with the jacks and a suit is nice. If I was suited to the queen, it's just a little bit better. And I will mark this card for this hand. I can't do it until after for review. I will mark the last hand, though, as a review hand. Pre-flop is just very clear. And yeah, so here it's a limped pot. We can think about what we had and how we would play it on this board, right? We can also think about what this player likely has, and try to just remain engaged. Like, what are people doing here? Okay, so this person bets. Last hand they bet, and I actually really, if I had in the last hand, if I had jammed on them, they might have called, and then we would have maybe gotten it in with really good equity. So maybe that's a missed opportunity. I don't know. I don't hate it. I think they could be betting like any pair with like a gutter maybe on the flop after what we saw last hand. I mean, that was a 4-way flop on a straight board, and they were just like, yeah, let's just put in half pot. A little peculiar. Hard to believe anybody else has all that much. If somebody had a king, they would probably have it with something on the flop. Maybe they'd have 8-9 queen, king or something, although that might have raised pretty. If you had like 8 and then you hit the king, like you're gonna have kings full now. And I think a lot of times if somebody did make trip kings, they would just lead this river. So in position, I like their bet with a lot of hands. Truthfully, I think they can get thin value with something like 10s or a hand like mine, jacks. I think would be very thin, but when everybody checks to you, I think it's likely good. This could be a little too loose. 10 high with a gap. It is suited to the 10. I think it's close. I think in a kind of loose, very high rake environment, I think it's a fold. But there are settings where I think you can get away with playing it for sure. All right, so I marked the last hand for pre-flop review. We'll check that out at the end of the session. And we have that player limping again. So this player on our left seems to be quite loose. Again, we don't have the HUD, which is fine. So we need to pay a little bit more attention, right? The thing about the HUD is like it basically remembers everything that happened at the table while you were, not paying attention. Speaking of not paying attention, I do want to start doing this like 20-20-20 thing where every 20 minutes I look away, 20 feet away for 20 seconds. And it's nice because I have a window right here. And I can actually see out into kind of like woodsy area. And it's supposedly good for your eyes, and it's probably good for improving your consistency of focus, right? By just unfocusing for a little bit, so then when we come back, it's easier to be more present. So speaking of more present, looks like there was a raise or 2 pre-flop, and then pot size bet on the flop. You'd think that would represent like sets, but at this SPR, it could be a lot of things. It looks like it was more of a 1 pair type situation. What was the flop? Let's see. They bet out with, oh no, two pair. They had bottom two. Bottom two is a rough hand. And they lost to top pair and a gut shot, which got there. Yeah, reasonable. And now they're gone. So whatever reads we have on them have evaporated into the ether. All right, so I have a straight, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, that's not how PLO works. Okay, I guess I fold that. Ace high board, they just get to win it a lot. They were the pre-flop raiser. That's how it works. And rainbow trash, a jack high Badoogie, if you prefer. Not even a great Badoogie, a pat one, but we're going to fold. Badoogie is a more niche game than Pot Limit Omaha that is played by mixed games aficionados. I think with the 3 and the 8, this is a fold, not suited to the ace. I believe that, so I'll mark that one for just a quick pre-flop checkup. Things that I'm reasonably confident in, I still want to double check. And again, the 5 and the deuce are just pretty bad cards. And even with the suited ace, I'm going to let this one go. Ace king with the suited ace, I'm not folding a lot of hands in the cutoff or the hijack, which is the range I would use ISOing against a limper when I'm in the cutoff. But I think the 5 and the deuce are just very bad cards. And again, that's one that I'll double check on to, calibrate my pre-flop approach, right? Get that finely tuned. I really think having a pre-flop, just having a solid pre-flop approach or an accurate pre-flop strategy, and then just not butchering things post-flop. Just basically there's 3 things, right? 1, play the right hands before the flop and play them the right way, mostly aggressively. 2, don't fold a ton of equity post-flop. You can fold equity when you have to, but if you have a lot of equity, just get the chips in or find a way to realize that equity. And 3, don't spew when you don't have a lot of equity. Don't get a lot of money in with very bad equity. And you make money in games like these, right? At higher levels, much more sophisticated stuff going on. But here it's just play the right hands, realize your equity, and don't spew when you don't have good equity. And then you can push people off equity too, but that's a little bit less a part of the game down here, I'd say. All right, so I'm going to use my hijack range because this is just a bonus blind. Basically, they have 100% of hands minus everything they wanted to raise. So I'm really delighted to see that person put that dollar in and then check. I have, a perfect rundown, single suited, but king high. I would rather have it king 10 or king jack, but that's not going to make the difference of playing the hand or not. It just means I'm probably not going to realize as much equity as I would otherwise. I flop top 2 pair in an open-ended straight draw. I do not have the flush draw, but I do have 1 blocker to the flush, and I have a blocker to the backdoor flush. So this, to me, feels like a very clear bet. There's going to be a lot of turns and rivers that I'm going to be able to play confidently. An ace, a king, a 10, or a 9 are all going to give me something nutty, except for the ace of spades and the 9 of spades. So that's, what is that? That's just 10 cards, but still 10 cards is a good amount of cards. If this player wanted to check raise, I'd be happy to get it in with them. This player, a little less so. This is maybe one of the players most likely to have a hand like deuce, deuce, whatever. But this would be a spot of having good equity, right? It's just hard for me to be in really rough shape. Somebody needs, I don't know, a set in the nut flush draw or something or whatever. It's hard to have really bad equity in that spot. So I think that's a very clear bet. And my bet sizes right now are going to be based on board texture, unless there's some overriding exploitative, situation going on where I'm oh, this person is probably going to fold a lot, so I don't have to bet as much, or, this person calls way too much, so I'm going to try and just pick a bet size I think they're going to call when I have a value hand, and maybe, a little different. But overall, I'm going to look at the board texture and just try and pick the size that I think is correct. And if I'm not sure, I just go half pot. It's it's a reasonable default. Half pot is rarely too wrong, right? It's close enough to all the other bet sizes that, you know, sometimes if we want to be potting it, then half pot's kind of off. But if we want to be third potting, half pot's not that bad. If we want a 2/3, half pot's not that bad. Honestly, I think you could just say I'm always going to half pot it until I develop a more sophisticated strategy, and you would be fine. That's what I did at the micros in No Limit, and it was not a problem. Basically, like, I almost think you could say, okay, half pot flop, pot 3/4 turn, and pot river, and that would be like a very a not too bad simplification. And then you just wouldn't be worried about bet sizing, right? And we want to learn to do better bet sizing, but I think, let's say you're a player coming from more limit games, then I think spending less energy worrying about bet sizing and more energy thinking about which hands you want to put in which part of your range, I think is going to be better, right? Choosing the wrong sizing with the right hands is way better than the right sizing with the wrong hands. And this is something that I've learned from studying a fair amount of solver output, looking at the EV differences between choosing different bet sizes, and you find an optimal bet size, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to bet, you know, 67% of range for half pot. Okay. And then you're like, well, what if I am only betting 3/4 pot? Okay, now I'm supposed to bet 80% of range for 3/4 pot, or for third pot. And I fold here. But you look at the EV difference, and it's very small. A lot of the time, this is generalization. Sometimes it's larger, but by and large, I think the value we get from proper bet sizing is much smaller than the value we get from properly choosing our hands for our given bet size. So I'd say, if you want to just kind of simplify your bet sizing, I think that's fine, and really focus on playing the right hands with a given bet size, and I think you'll have better results. Because I know I can get in my head about bet sizing, and that's one of the things, as, you know, formerly a Limit Hold'em player, not formerly, I mean Limit Hold'em for life, right? But formerly a full-time professional Limit Hold'em player who played a lot of Limit Hold'em. Limit Hold'em's all just about, all right, there's one bet size, and it's just which hands do you want to bet, and which hands do you not want to bet, or fold, or call, right? So picking the right hands, I think, is just super important. And then bet sizing, that's kind of the next thing. You know, here, if I was in this pot, like, what would my bet sizing be? Would I even want to bluff with the nut blocker with 2-pair, right? I'd be mostly up against a lot of flushes if people had put action in. I don't know, I had a fairly hilarious 2-pair bluff recently. I made a clip of it. I wonder, do people watch clips? I didn't used to make them very much, and I feel like that's kind of a leak in my Twitch game, is not making clips, not making highlights. Because it's like, who wants to watch the whole stream, right? I mean, my streams are short by Twitch standards, right? Like an hour and a half. But when people are streaming for just hours on end, I think this hand isn't very good. But I think in a loose passive game, I will actually overlimp it. It's kind of sus, but there's going to be some very good flops. I'm going to have some nutty straight things, and I'm going to have, you know, some sets. And I'm not as worried about getting set under set as I would be in a more aggressive pot. So now I have an under gutter, which is not... Oh, should we call it a sewer? Yeah, like an under gutter, right? Because it's like the gutter under the straight, which in German they call a straight a street, ein Straße, right? So under the street, the gutter is like the sewer. Yeah, I'm going to call this a sewer. All right. We've coined a new poker term. The sewer. We fold the sewer. It's not very good. It's about as good as the drinking water in it. So, yeah. On this channel, we coin poker terms. Like the low jack. That was years ago. That was over a decade ago that we came up with that one. All right, so this would have been an interesting turn. I mean, like, we don't make the gutter, but we make the underset. we can come up with some jargon for that one. You know, the key in poker terms, I think, is like, what's the purpose of jargon, right? Jargon can be kind of weaponized, and people can use it to try to exclude people from their conversations, or to try to come off as like, oh, I know all these things because I know this jargon. And often use it incorrectly because they're just trying to impress people or whatever. And I think that's very bad. That can be very toxic. Let's not do that. Get back to that. Jack 654, all right, double suited, but not really anything to be like ISOing and building pots with. And I don't want to overlimp the cutoff here. The last hand was kind of a special case where it just felt like it was an opportunity to maybe get in there really cheap and flop big and have a nice high SPR. But jargon, like the idea, the purpose, right, the actual utility that's positive is, you know, the reason I came up with the term low jack was because we were playing 6 max hold'em, right, and or Omaha hold'em, but I was a limit player then mostly, and people would call, you know, there's the big blind, there's the small blind, there's the button, there's the cutoff, and the hijack, and there's one more position. And people were like, oh, under the gun, right? Some people call it early position. Some people, I heard someone in a video call it utka, which I was like, oh, under the gun, okay. But, like, if that person's sitting out, then the hijack is under the gun. So under the gun is not a term we should use to refer to a specific position when we're contemplating open raising ranges, when we're contemplating any kind of like positional thing, right? Under the gun is just a description of whoever's first to act. So I was like, we need to get rid of that term. And I was like, well, hijack, low jack, you know, if you try and steal too often from the low jack, you're going to you're going to get caught and you're going to wind up wearing a low jack. I don't know. So so I put it out there, and like people in the limit hold'em community used it for a few years, and then I kind of sort of took a break from poker. I wasn't doing a lot of poker stuff for a little while, and then I came back and I was like, oh, people are using it, they like it. Not everybody does. I'm saddened that the Matrix says under the gun and MP. Like, I wish it just said low jack and hijack. It would just be better. Please change it. Hi, Upswing Poker. It's fine. It's still a great tool, but like every time I use it, I have to translate it. Ace Queen 9-8. I think even Rainbow, these big cards, I think I can raise from the cutoff. You know, I do have a loose player behind me, so I'm not going to win immediately, and a loose player in the blinds. And now I have middle pair, a flush blocker, a bad gut shot, not the under gutter. This is like the medium gutter. I don't know, like a bowling, whatever. We don't have a term for this one yet. I check it. And this is not a straight. I need a 6. I need a jack. But a 6 gives me the second nuts, and a jack gives me the second nuts. And I'm feeling a little better, and I do have a blocker to the straight, and I have a blocker to the flush draw. So let's go. 3/4 spot. All right. Watiti says, I really wanted to know English to learn all this content, which seems to have great value, but since I don't know English, I just watch and anguish with my ears. LOL. I wonder if that's like Google Translate, or that's... I should probably type something in. I'll type something in. Yeah, I think actually things like poker content, I really enjoy cooking videos, and I enjoy watching chess. Just anything I'm interested in languages I'm trying to learn, I find very helpful. Especially like cooking videos, because people are like, I am now sauteing the things. Or they're like, you know, tofu, onions, oil. And it's like, oh, it's, you know, people describing what they're doing as one might do in a poker video, or like a chess video. They're like, caballo, a6. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, horse e to e6. But, yeah, anyway, that's, thank you for being here. I will respond there. Cowcast TV says clips are definitely popular. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely up my clip game. So thank you for the feedback on that. I will keep working on that. Kevin E. Poker says, how are the results going? The results are going good. Like, I kind of don't want to talk about them that much because I feel like I'm definitely running above EV. I think I'm above all in EV. I haven't even checked it lately. you know, these games are fantastic, and I think I'm playing reasonably solid pre-flop and not making too many massive mistakes post-flop. I mean, I know I'm making some laydowns that are potentially giving up a lot of equity. I'm not trying too hard to be balanced. I'm trying to be aware of where the balance is and then often making a more exploitative play. But yeah, the results have been really good, and I kind of, you know, my sample isn't that big, right? It's under 20K hands at PLO100, so like, you know, small sample size, LOL. But I really do want to, um, um, I want to have a train of thought that I'm not trying to think about three things at once. Okay, we're playing the hand. We got to focus while we're in the hand. We'll get back to that. I have top pair. I have a gut shot. The sewer, if we want to call it, the under gutter. I'm going to check, and I'm just going to fold because there's not a single river card that I'm going to be really happy on. And I think there's a reasonable chance I'm already beat. And if I'm not, then it's very easy for me to get beat. Yeah, so, okay, let me respond to ITT in... in chat. Thank you for being here. Anyway, language do you speak? I know I talk very fast sometimes. Maybe I'll get some subtitles on my YouTube videos someday. Okay, yeah, so just in terms of results, like, I don't think my current results are likely sustainable, so I kind of want to wait till they come down to something that seems sustainable over a sample size. I mean, it's not like I'm winning at like 40 big blinds per 100 or anything, but yeah. So they've been good, you know. I guess I'll put, people like results graphs, right? Maybe I'll do a graph thing. I'll do a graph thing at the end of June. Hopefully I won't have a huge downer just before it or just after it. So we'll do graph reveal at the end of the month. That's what, when I played Limit Hold'em mostly, I used to check my results like once a month. Like, for real, I would cover up my stack with the HUD, so I wouldn't even see how many chips I had at the table. I'd have auto rebuy on, so I always had at least 12 bigs, right? So big bats, 12 big bats, so that I'd never go all in, or I'd go all in and then instantly rebuy, right? I would never not be able to put the last bet in. Double suited kings were going to raise up on the button. If somebody raises ahead of us, I think this is more of a flatting combo. We want an ace most of the time, or like king, king, queen, queen, double suited, you know, king, king, double pair, double suited. But this, I will certainly raise a limper. But yeah, I certainly am, oh yeah, so I would like cover up my stack, and I would have no idea what my results were during a session. I'd get a feel for it, but I wouldn't always have an accurate feel for it. And then at the end of the month, I'd look at my results, and I just had enough money online, and it was mostly on PokerStars, so like, I didn't worry too much about, you know, having a big bankroll on there. I might have gotten a sizable chunk stuck on for a little while, but they paid it back super fast. So, as opposed to full tilt, I actually took my money off full tilt not that long before Black Friday, but my wife had money on there, and that was a nightmare. Okay, kings with a jack and a 4. I'm not blocking any of the straight business. I'm not blocking any of the board business. I think this is a check back, even against a loose passive player. Now I have not a gut shot. I do have a second nut flush draw, and there are... I don't think I'm being check raised here that often. I think I can bet half pot and get some calls, and then if I get check raised, I'm just going to cry and then try and decide what to do. But I think they're going to have a lot of one pair hands, and if I get them to fold a one pair hand, that's a win, right? I mean, that's some substantial equity that they have forfeited. So I want to give them the chance to do that. That was because I picked up the flush draw, right? If the turn were like an offsuit 10, I'd probably check it back. Queen 9-8, 3. I fold. If the 3 were, I don't know, a 7, a 6 maybe, I think that's what I raised there. That might be a cutoff open with a 6 or a 7, and against a limper, maybe a fold, but I think it would be okay-ish anyway. But yeah. So yeah, we'll have a a results reveal at the end of the month, I guess. Maybe that'll be fun. I don't know. Next month I'm planning on a lot more volume. So far my volume is kind of like embarrassing in terms of it's just not that much. But my goal with this challenge has primarily not been to play a large volume, because like streaming for an hour or hour and a half, I was going to do an hour session, and then I kind of made it a little shorter. We're up around close to 50 minutes now, so I guess I will wrap the session, and then we'll get into the session review, because we've got a lot to review today, I think. What do I have? Let's see. No, we don't have a lot to review. What am I talking about? Let's talk about the King hand. As always, any hands that anybody wants to review, let me know. Let's see. We'll say that one's post flop. So yeah, we'll do a session review. But so my purpose wasn't like last month and this month. It's not let's get a lot of volume in. It was just I want to form foundational habits that I can build on, right? And I'd say that this month and last month have been successful in that regard. I've definitely, I feel much stronger as a player, and I feel, I don't know, every day I wake up and I want to play some, you know, and I enjoy coming here and hanging out with all of you and just playing some and thinking about my game and making sure I'm really talking through things. Session review. King, Jack 4, double suited. I want to check my assertion or assumption that this was, I mean, clearly this is a raise, right? But if somebody raises in front of me, I think this is a flat. So I had a kind of a decent idea. Let's say button versus MP or something. Double suited kings with a jack and a 4, flat. Yes. And yes, the ones we want to 3-bet are with any ace, with any pair queens through nines, so like a straightening pair basically, or with 10-9 double suited. And all of those we call the 3-bet except for ace 9 through ace 6. All right, cool. So I'm just happy with that, right? I feel like I've internalized that element of the pre-flop game. Let's actually just very quickly see button versus cutoff, if that's any different with the double suited kings. Yes, so we are 3-betting a little bit more with the double suited kings. Now we're actually 3-bet jamming kings, double suited kings with any ace. That's interesting. And double suited kings with like a queen jack, queen 10, 10-8, 10-7, 6-5 even. These ones, and now down through like king 4-4 double suited. Now those are all going to be 3-bet calls. So, and we're never 3-bet folding double suited kings on the button against these openers. All right, so we move on with the hand though. So this board, I'm trying to get better at like deciding whether to c-bet when I have these kind of like one pair, overpair type hands. And one reason I don't want to bet a hand like this is, I mean, first of all, it's pretty easy for my opponent to have some kind of 7-8 or like 8 in a wrap and just get myself into some predicaments by getting check raised. Like, questions I want to ask myself are, am I blocking a lot of my opponent's check raises? And I'd say the answer is no, right? Not at all. I'm not blocking any of the sets, any of the 2-pair combos, any of the wraps, except like jack 10-9, I guess I'm blocking, but that's just like barely. So that's a negative in terms of c-betting. And then 2, like, would I mind getting check raised? How am I going to feel about getting check raised? I'm going to feel pretty bad because I have a pretty strong hand in terms of showdown value with the kings, but then also I've got this backdoor flush draw that I would like to, you know, take a card off. So I do take a card off. It's a 10, and they check again. And now I've got additional equity, right? I've got spades. If they did turn 2-pair or a straight, or if they flopped a set, or flopped 2-pair, I think they're very often going to bet here. If they had a hand like 9-8, 7-5 or something, maybe they check here and check call. But I think I'm good very often. I think when I'm not good, I'm not often getting check raised. I do have the jack, so I'm blocking the nuts, which is nice as well. And I do have equity if I get check raised. And like, are they going to blow me off my equity? Maybe, but maybe I'm going to get to draw. I don't know, probably not. But it depends on kind of the size. But I feel like I'm going to get called by like 2-pair hands and not raised by those. So against those, I actually have a good amount of equity, right? I've got a king. I've got, like, if they have 10-8, then a 3 is nice. A 7 is nice. and a spade, of course. So, unless it's like an 8 of spades. So I bet, and they fold. And I think that's pretty much what there is there. Let's proceed. I feel like this session review might go faster than some of them. We'll see. Okay, so I just fold this. I think this is kind of garbage. I think it's a hand that looks like it might be better than it is, but it's not. It's pretty trash. Let's take a look, though. Double check it. It's a raise. I'm wrong. Okay, so we learned. All right, so ace, queen, 8-3, bad suit is RFI fold from button. So just having that ace, having the queen, these are good blockers, right? Queen high flush draw against 2 blinds is going to be somewhat effective. You know, the ace and the 8 and these things, actually, I'm going to make a broader note. Ace, queen, single suited is RFI from button, except 6-2 and 3-2. So basically, any ace queen from the button, we can just about, yeah, single suited. So if we go to rainbow, I think this is going to be a fold rainbow. Yeah, so it's a fold rainbow. So I was just a little too conservative here. So is fold from button, as are all worse ace q rainbow, but all better ace q rainbow raise fold. Except ace queen jack 10 rainbow, which raise calls. Okay, I'll make my notes more concise. So yeah, here, what was wrong with my thinking? I just don't have this heuristic built in yet, right? Single suited ace queen, just raise it from the button, unless the side cards are truly tragic. These are just very bad. They're not truly tragic, right? 6 deuce, that's truly tragic. 3 deuce, truly tragic. 8-3, just like moderately tragic. Okay. Next hand. Let's go here. Queen jack jack 2. I was trying to decide whether I would raise this here and whether I would ISO with it. I think I was on the fence about whether I would raise it here. I think if it was suited to the queen, I would, and not to the jack, and that is correct. So we'll just say queen, jack, jack, deuce. Single suited is RFI, call, good suit, and fold, and straight fold, bad suit. So not RFI fold, just fold. Let's see, in the hijack, I think this is just going to be a fold, right? Yeah. So queen jack, jack deuce, single suited is fold in hijack. Good suit or bad suit. All right, so this was correct. And it's interesting how the jack and the queen are that different, but they are. So, you know, something to be aware of. All right, and then this, I was thinking, is an RFI from any position. Let's just very quickly verify that. Yes, okay, yes, for sure. It's a raise call from any position, so from the low jack, hijack, cutoff, or button. I think this is a pretty interesting hand. I'm like, okay, I've got a great bluffing hand, right? Because I've got tons of equity, lots of nut outs, and I'm double blocking the nuts. I'm against some loose pot. Oh, this player decides to bet. They bet third pot, which maybe is kind of like, I don't know, suggests that they don't have a great hand. And I have so much equity. But I'm also in position, and all of my draws are to the nuts. And because all my draws are to the nuts, I kind of liked the idea of letting these players come in behind me. And they're like, no thanks. But if they did come in behind me, you know, I can bink a 7 and they can have all kinds of other straights, right? A pair and an 8, or like a 3 and a pair that makes the 7 high straight. They can make flushes, and I've got the nut flush. So I liked that idea. I'm not sure if it's correct. I could have just jammed on this player, and if somebody comes in, that's fine too, right? Because my equity is going to be so good against basically anything. It's really hard for me to have very poor equity. We'll take a look at the equity calculator in a moment. Now they check, and I'm thinking, oh, I can bluff this, but at this stack depth, am I going to get folds? I thought probably not. However, maybe I should have been thinking, I think my equity is still very good here, even though I only have one card to come. I do have these 8s, and if they have a 1-pair hand, I'm ahead, and if I get them to fold that would be a major coup. So I check it back, and then the king comes, and I'm like, well, can I get a player like this to fold a king? I don't think so. Maybe I can get them fold a 10, but if they flopped 1 pair and then they whiffed, like my hand is good, right? If they have like 6-7 ace queen or something, so I check it back, not in giving up, but just saying I'm gonna try to realize my showdown value here, and that works out. That doesn't mean it's correct. I don't know what they were doing. They had a 3 to make a straight, and they had a 7 to make a straight, and I guess they could have made any of these two pair hands. So we'll take a look at what the equities were here on the flop. Not that way, not that way. Here we go. Launch equity calculator. We'll bring it over. All right, and we'll take a look. First, let's look on the turn. I mean, I'm crushing on the turn, right? I have to be crushing. All right, 3-1. Let's see on the flop. Is it going to be more or less? I think it's going to be less. Very little less. Okay, so getting in and against a hand like this would have been good. Let's take a moment and see what happens if they flop the actual nuts. I actually still have 45% against the nuts. And given the stack to pot, what was I going to do? I was going to have to put in 25 or so to win win like 45, something around there. So this would have been plenty of equity in that spot. I just thought I could realize not some more. I was kind of like greedy. I was thinking implied odds, right? Which I don't know. I don't know if that's wrong. I don't know. You tell me. Anybody who has any thoughts on this hand, feel free to share them. I'm always open to thoughts and suggestions. All right, so here I can have as little as 38% equity against a set. If they have something like a set and let's say like 7 of diamonds, I already had the 8 of hearts, let's say 8 of spades, something like, oh no, let's give them, yeah, okay. Now I'm going to be down to 32% equity. So there were combinations that I could get it in pretty bad against here. But so if we go back to the flop and we just look at, I would be putting in 25 to win a little over 40. So what percentage of the pot is that? That's 30 something percent, right? Less than 40%. Close to, yeah, less than 40%. It's like 35, somewhere in there. So as a result, like I would have enough equity, but I do think I like the attempt to get maximize these implied odds because my hand is just so strong. I've got very robust equity, right? There's just like nary a turn card that I'm gonna hate, except if it pairs the board, then maybe I just get away from it and that's fine. But then on the turn, like, do I want to jam? I don't know. If we go back to the equity calculator one more time and we look at the thing here, let's say like they have 7 of clubs, 3 of clubs, 4 of diamonds. Is that on the board? That might be on the board. That's not on the board. And then like 2 of hearts. Let's see how bad's my equity there. Now I only have 25%, so I don't really want to jam against like a bad straight. And even if they have just like, let's give them not an actual straight, but like, I don't know, 2 pair, something that's ahead of us. This is going to be close to 50, not even, right? So I've only got a third. So I'm cool here. I like checking it back. I'm happy with it. Cowcast TV says, Poker Noob here. What is good suit versus bad suit? Excellent question. And I'm glad you asked. I'm often talking through things kind of quickly. I don't want to get too deep into pre-flop unless people express interest, which you have. So I'm happy to answer. Yeah, good suit basically means suited to the top card, right? So here, ace 8-8-9 suited. This is good suit because I have an ace high suit. If instead the ace were a club and like the 9 were a heart, right? So I had ace of clubs, 8 of diamonds, 8 of hearts, 9 of hearts. That would be bad suit because it's just the weaker combination, the weaker version of the same numerical combination, right? Does that make sense? So here, good suit, I'm drawing to the nuts, right? I'm drawing to the ace high flush. Bad suit, I would have had 9 high flush draw. The hand would have played differently. I don't know what I would have done with it. But yeah, so bad suit is anything besides the best way it can be suited. And I'm not totally clear on like, if you add the 9 of hearts, do they call it good suit or do they call that bad suit? It's a little less good. but it's still ace high. So, and it doesn't have to be ace high. Like if I had 10, 8, 8, 9, and I was suited to the 10, which is my highest card, that would be good suit. Whereas if I were suited to the 9, it would still be bad suit. So I hope that helps. And thank you for the question. I'm sure you were not the only person who was wondering, right? Anytime you have a question, like there's going to be someone else out there who's like, oh, I want to know this, but they just like don't ask the question for whatever reason. And so I'm very happy when people do ask the questions. It's helpful for everyone. We can all learn and grow together. 7664 double suited. So when the hand's double suited, there is no good suit or bad suit, right? Because every card is suited because it's double suited. Two of the cards are suited to each other. Two of the other cards are suited to each other. So it has to be suited to the highest card and to the next highest card. Actually, that's not true. Anytime there's a pair double suited, when there's a rundown double suited, there actually is good suit and bad suit. Like if this were a 5, then this 5 were a club, then technically this would be bad suit. 7, 6 of hearts, and then 5 high clubs. But I think that's less important than when you're single suited. Okay, here. What was my question? I think it was more, what hands like this might I 3-bet? Because I was pretty sure that this is a little too loose. We're going to look at double suited 6s, and double suited 6s with a 7 and a, yeah. None of these are 3-bets, basically. So small blind, let's see, 7, 6, 6, 4, double suited is fold. Small blind versus button RFI, so meaning the button raised first in here. And we're in the small blind, we fold this all the time. 6, 6 double suited is RFI, or is 3-bet. Small blind versus button. If ace king through ace 5, not ace 9, which is weird, or 5 5 through 3 3. Meaning, if we have an ace with any card from a king through a 5, except a 6, or a 9, and I guess the 9's just like a little too bad, I don't know. Or if we have 2 pair, right? We have 6s suited with 5s, 4s, or 3s, but 2's no good. So this was correct fold. Happy to see that. And I was thinking maybe 3-betting some hands that were similar to that one, but still not good enough to 3-bet. And then this one, I'm curious. This is bad suit, right? Because it's suited to the jack. Now, it's not worst suit. Suited to the 9 would be worse than suited to the jack. But the PLO matrix doesn't differentiate there. There's so many combos in Pot Limit Omaha, in any Omaha with 4 cards, right? That there needs to be some level of simplification just so we can present the information in a way that we can actually absorb, right? So because of that, we're going to have some simplifications. So let's look in the cutoff, and we're going to look at ace jack single suited. And I've checked with Upswing about whether I can actually put the matrix on screen during my stream. I didn't want to do that because it's one of their products that you pay monthly for, so I'm not going to just broadcast it without permission, but I'm checking with them, seeing whether it's okay to do that. So I'll get back to you, and maybe at some point we'll have it right there, and you can see exactly what I'm looking at. For the time being, I'll have to do my best to describe it. All right, so good suit, bad suit in this case isn't as big a difference in terms of which hands we raise. The main difference is when we're suited to the ace, we're usually going to call the 3-bet, whereas when we're not suited to the ace, we're going to do a lot of folding. So this was incorrect. This was a little too timid, I guess, a little too tight. Single suit is RFI from cutoff, good suit or bad suit, right? So suited to the jack, I'm supposed to raise this, but if someone 3-bets me, I fold. Whereas if I was suited to the ace and someone 3-bets me, if it's one of the blinds, I call. If it's the button and I'm out of position, I actually am supposed to fold. But I don't think calling would be a huge mistake because 9-8 and 9-5, no, just 9-8, 8-7, it would probably be a little mistake. But that's the sort of thing that's not going to be a disaster, I don't think. Certainly not at this level. Many ace jack single suited are RFI fold if bad suit. Very bad side cards with ace-jack single suited are folds. So that's kind of descriptive, right? That's not going to teach a perfect, like, this is exactly how we play this hand class all the time. My strategy is basically to just gradually get a little better each day, right? Just refine the pre-flop sense, just sand off the edges, so it's closer and closer to that GTO basis. And it's just a basis, right? The idea is I want to form a basis from which I can then build my post-flop game and just continue, making small pre-flop improvements. And so far, I'm very happy with my progress in that regard. Still clearly making mistakes, right? Making inaccurate assertions like, oh, if I had 6, 6, 7, 8 double suited, maybe I 3-bet this. No, I don't. Maybe I can flat it with a loose pass at big blind. That might be something to consider. But yeah, just, I don't know, with anything, just like get a little bit better each day, right? Just make the commitment to just put in the work. It doesn't have to be a ton of work. If it's consistent over time, I used to do 3 chess puzzles every day, and then I did 5, because that's how many you got free on chess.com. And I did that for years, literal years. And at the beginning of that, my puzzle rating was like, I don't know, maybe 1,500 or something. And now my puzzle rating is like 2,300. And I haven't continued with it as much because, honestly, chess is something that I do that distracts me from poker. So maybe I'll get back into it. But I really wanted to solidify this game first, and then we'll think about variety streaming and all that stuff. But for me, it just reinforced the idea that, like, it doesn't have to be a large amount of effort at a single time if it's a consistent effort over a long time, right? So that's what I'm trying to do with this. And I think watching, I think the session reviews probably, if you're at a similar point in your game to where I am, or a little bit behind, or a little bit ahead, or maybe significantly behind, and you ask questions and you get a lot out of it, I think that might be the part that's most sort of educational, and hopefully it helps. And Cowcast says, makes sense, thank you. And my pleasure. I'm very happy to have some interaction and be able to respond to questions, right? It makes the experience more fun, but I think it also makes it more engaging and more educational for everyone. So with that, I will say thank you all for watching. And if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe if you like and you want more content like this. And on Twitch, you can follow and you can subscribe now. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. Cheers.